would like to remind you that these layouts are the default layouts of Maya, and you can actually change it, or you can actually design any layout that you want for your own benefits, especially because you're using your home computer now. Might as well learn how to do this effectively. So I'm going to create a layout that I think is going to be perfect for me for all UV work. And here it is. So this is my working space. Here I'll set up my UV panel. What does that mean? Well, just like all the different kinds of panels you have seen so far, like Hypershade and all that, well, Hypershade and Outliner, there is a thing called UV editor, and that's what we'll be using. So here's the UV editor, and before I save my layout, let's discuss what this UV editor is. All right, like I said, an object has to be prepared, or rather the surface of an object has to be prepared before you can even think of applying or putting a texture on it. So what is that? What do you mean surface? So here's an object. I just created a normal everyday sphere. Notice that it's made of polygons, and those polygons are expressed in a different way here on this UV editor. So when I select it, you'll see how it shows up. So see these numbers from 0 to 1, 0 to 1. Though it goes infinitely like this, it's really only this first block we are interested in. So this pattern that you see is the default factory setting of how a sphere's UVs have been arranged. These are not polygons. These are actually, it looks like polygons, but it's really not. It's a thing called UV. This is U and that is V.
Where did you go to get that?
You mean how do we get this?
Yeah.
Go to Panels, Panel, UV Editor. So we will be now. Let me show you a few more things. Just a second. Okay, there we go. All right. So this is probably what you'll be saying. You select this and you see this. Okay. Now let me create a cube, and on the cube, the UV editor, the UV pattern looks like this. Now let's go create a. Actually, hold on. Let me just. I'm gonna just record this. So this will serve as a refresher of how I got all that. All right. So when you are working with UVs, it's a good idea to arrange your panels in a way that shows efficiency. So here's my perspective view, and in this panel, I'll convert the panel into the UV editor here. So now every object has its own default UV. When I select this sphere, this is the default UV. For a cube, this is the default UV. And let's see, create a cylinder. That's the default UV. When I select all, you'll see it all jumbled up. Now these UVs are fine and okay for simple objects, but now when you are creating a complex object, notice that the UVs seem to be still has not changed. And the fact is, it is there, but it's all kind of hidden. So let me show you. Okay, so it's kind of it's still these new areas have not been sufficiently worked out here. Okay, so this is the reason we have to design a UV map for the new object that we created. So this this workshop is to show you what that means and how to create an appropriate UV design for an object we have created. Okay. So here's how we do that. So this is an object I have created, and its default UV shows like this. Now what I'm going to do is create a brand new UV. What that means is this. I would first select an entire surface like that, right? By selecting the faces. Then I would use create, and I choose one of these three. These are to create UVs: cylindrical UV, planar, or spherical. Now you tell me, seeing this surface, what do you think is this? What kind of a surface is this more like? Cylindrical, planar, or sphere?
Planar.
Planar. Correct. So you click on that. Boom. So what happened is, something has happened, but what happened is we didn't do the settings correctly. So it didn't really fall correctly. Once it falls correctly, you'll see the UV has been created that looks pretty much like that shape. So I'm going to remake it. So having selected this faces, I go to planar and go to the options. And in this options, you'll see that I can, let me reset the whole thing there. What I'm interested in is the direction in which I'm going to make that UV. The direction basically means the direction that it's pointing towards. What is that direction? X, Z, or Y?
Y.
Y. Correct. So a direction that is pointing to that surface is what I'm interested in. So I choose Y. And I also choose this option, keep image height width ratio. Then I say apply. Boom. Notice that suddenly a UV has been created, correct? This sheet is actually called a shell, okay? This shell is a UV shell there. And I can simply select it like this, or we'll deal with that later. So you can basically select the shell and move it around. And each of these can be moved around. Some are actually, all these are jointed. Now these, obviously this is all one piece. It has not been jointed with this. Okay. So this now as we create the UVs, all this will rearrange itself in a more appropriate pattern based on how this actual object looks. And so that's what we're going to be doing now. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is this. So I created one shell. Now let me create another shell. Let's go to the other side. This. See how it's messed up right now? Now I'm going to create a new UV. I go to create planar, and here it is, planar, options, and the direction, I can tell the directions by pressing W. And the direction still is Z, correct? Sorry, Y. So I select the Y and I say apply. Boom. So I created another one. Once I created, just kind of move it out of the way. Next. Okay, top and bottom done. Now let's go to the side. Select these two and press W to check the side, the direction. What direction is it, guys? Z. Okay, because see, the Z is going into this object. Select Z, apply. Now here's the thing. If you select something incorrectly, you'll know immediately, because when you say apply, you think it looks like nothing happened. Though X, nothing happened. Y, nothing seemed to have happened. But Z, something happened. So that's a really good indication that it's when you select the correct direction, the UV falls correctly. Okay, got that. Now how about this? It's X. And how about this? Also X. And how about this? This is a Z. This also is a Z. And this would be an X. There. Now, we can start moving things out of the way. And if there's something remaining, it'll be the one that, okay, look at, what is this? Oh yeah, these two. And this, perfect. So if once you have done a good job of this, you'll see that everything would have been accounted for. Nothing will remain. If something remains, it means there still is an area that we haven't looked at yet. So now you notice that when I double click this and select the entire, all the faces, all these got accounted for. Got it? So this is really what creating UVs are about. But this one was for planar. Now let me create one here for a cylindrical. Okay. All right. So now I created a UVs for a planar object or a box-like object. Let me create UVs for this. And this one is more like a cylindrical one, right? So in fact, the objects that we're looking at is, let's say it looks something, I don't know, something like this. Right, so to create UVs for something like this, it is really, what I do is this. You first select, we are think surfaces, okay? Think surfaces. All right, so there is a top surface, a bottom surface, and a round surface, curved surface. Doesn't matter which one you select first. Well, let's select the top first. There, I selected all that. Now I'm going to cast a UV. So I go to create and I choose cylindrical, planar, or spherical. Here it is, cylindrical, planar, spherical. What is that, guys? What does it look like? Even though it looks round, it really is a plane, planar. Okay, planar means plane like. So plane is definitely what I'm going to choose. And options, here's the options. The direction is a Y. I go to Y, make sure the keep image height width ratio is kept, and I say apply. Boom. So I create one. Let's go to the other side. There. Good. And also happens to be Y. Apply. Done. Now what remains is the center. So select all that center. And this, see, notice that it's a curve, right? So, well, it's definitely not planar. It's definitely not spherical. It's cylindrical. All right, cylindrical it is. I go to the options, and the option is pretty straightforward. It's more like basic setting like this. Hit apply, boom. So what happened is that curve got uncurled and laid out evenly. That's what happened here. And when you do a cylindrical, what you would need to do is it creates these control patterns around. You need to really work this red and kind of cover it up like that. See, by default it kind of falls halfway. Got to kind of cover it like that. Well, like that. And that is the correct representation of the UVs of this cylinder, the curved side of the cylinder. Okay, now once this is done, we can start looking at arranging this, but that's a different workshop. Now let's look at this. Let's do the same for this sphere. All right, so now we're going to look at the sphere and arrange its or to create its UVs. This is the default, but let's see. Let's try to create it from scratch. So what we do is this: you select this, and you choose actually the faces. Select all the face, and say, okay, it's definitely not planar. It's kind of cylindrical, but there's a spherical, which is probably more accurate. I click on. Well, let's look at the options. Options, very simplistic options. Just say apply. Boom. Now, just like in the cylinder, there's this red control thing that has happened. You just kind of cover it like that. Got it? Cover it, and that represents how the sphere's UVs have been unfolded. Now we have to do this more. Yeah. So there you have it. So even though it looks kind of broken, it's fine because we can then later break off these two pieces and attach it here if we need to. Break off these and attach it here if we need to. But that's a different workshop. Okay. All right, guys. Did you get the idea of how to take an object and cast or to apply UV map on it? Just show of hands.
Yazil says it's a lot to take in.
What's that?
Yazil says it's a lot to take in.
A lot to take in, yes. Okay. All right. So let's do this. Let's do this. What we'll do is let's go do something very, very simple. So now I'm going to do something very simple, right, guys? Here it is. And yes, there's going to be tutorials for this, so don't worry. You're in good hands. I'll get rid of all this. Let's work on something super simple like a cereal box. Does that look like a cereal box? Okay. Now, by default, this is the UV pattern. And how would we break it up into, or how would we do this? All right, so here's the cereal box, and let's make let's design the UVs on this for this. When you select it, because it's a cube, it has its default setup. But now let us do this more accurately. All right, so the first thing I do is firstly, let's make sure we have the UV editor here, which it is, and I found it here. Panels, panel, UV editor. Okay. Next, we select surfaces, continuous surfaces. So this is one continuous surface, and I select it by going to the face, and I select the face. Good. Now I'm going to cast a UV, or I'm going to create the UV on this surface. Even though that UV exists, see, there it is, I need to recreate it. And when you recreate it, it creates itself using the exact proportions, and this is what we want. Here's how you do it. Go to create and choose one of these three: cylindrical, planar, or spherical. Planar is the correct one because this is a plane-like surface. Go to the planar options. Now, when you press W, you can see the pivots. and it tells the direction that this surface is, or the direction that we are looking for, the direction that is perpendicular to this surface, and that is X. Another way to look at it is, if you throw a dart onto the surface, are you going to throw it in that direction, this, or this? I hope you say this, because that makes explanations much easier. And so that is X. So choose X, and definitely keep image height width ratio. And here, when you click on it, it creates it. Notice that it looks proportionately correct to that. Now let's see what happens if I don't check this. What will happen is it'll just go for a crazy square, and that square doesn't look anything like that. And that's when you should know that you probably did not choose this. So you have to click on it and then press apply. Now, if you made a mistake, remember that you can always recreate it. Just select the surface again, choose the correct things, and just say apply, and it just recreates. Once it creates it, you can just kind of move it out of the way so you can kind of see how each of these gets recreated. So go to the other side, because the settings will still be the same. Say apply, put it out of the way, then just go to other sides. The direction I'm interested in is the Z. Direction interested in Z. Only 2 more left. This is a Y. And opposite, also a Y. Done. There. So this concludes making the UVs for all the surfaces that make up a cereal box. The next step would be to arrange all the UVs in this first square, okay, from 0 to 1, that square. And that's the point, that's a idea of how to design a UV, but that's a different workshop. All right, guys, so I think that should be enough for you to do this one thing. That is, go ahead and create a cereal box that looks like this. Actually, no, that's not true. I want you to do this. Go ahead and create a cereal box, and then another box on the side, which is a little more crazy, like this. Something like this. Like that. Okay. And design or to create UV maps for all the surfaces. Now here's the tip. Even though you would think that, well, I could make a UV here and another UV here, don't, because you're looking at continuous surfaces. So you want to select this and this and create a UV for that. Similarly, this and this and create a UV and so on. So that's it. So where do you save all this? Here. You save it in here. Under materials, actually no, under class projects, O3_UV work. Right? Just save it under UV work.